Thank you for watching the Housing Oregon YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Slide decks from the presenters are going to be available below. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to this session of Mentoring the Next Generation. This, because of my silver hair, has been on my mind. I know it's been on everybody's mind. Gosh, making sure that we get through this, hard period, but also a growth period, and that we bring along the next layer of and the new leaders of affordable housing. So I came up with this concept. I am Kathy Swift. I am, aside from a low-income housing banker at Heritage Bank, I am also the president of the Pacific Northwest Women's Affordable Housing Network. And the thing that you will see, we do talk to guys, okay? And, it applies to guys too. But one of the reasons I and some of my co-founders came up with joining this national organization is that we saw such a dire need for bringing up the next generation of leaders, and particularly for women. It seems like that glass ceiling is really there. And affordable housing is what you fall into. You don't necessarily know about it to choose it as a career. Though Aubrey Giles, our first intern from PSU, is going to be starting. She started today. And so, yeah, I'm the president of the chapter. These are all members of our chapter, and it's free, and we have a lot of fun. That's my introduction.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm Linny Simkin, and I am also on the board of PNWWHN, Pacific Northwest WAN. And if you'd like to join, there is a QR code right there and also one over there, or you can stop by our booth, or you can look us up on our website. It's all available to you, and men are allowed to join as well. So we call you allies. So thank you all for coming. I think probably everyone in this room knows, as Kathy was just saying, that we've got a full-blown crisis in affordable housing talent pipeline. We really need to spend some extra time focusing specifically on this to grow this next generation of leaders. I feel uniquely qualified to comment on this because I'm a recruiter. And my job has gotten harder and harder over the last few years. I am recently retired, so my passion project in retirement is to help grow this pipeline. So there are three legs of that stool in my mind. One is college outreach, just getting out and meeting young people in college and making sure they're aware of affordable housing as an industry and as a great career path. The second is supporting internship programs. There are a lot of great internship programs that are springing up, and we want to make sure that they are doing the best work they can and getting as many potentially interested young interns into the chances to really get their hands on this work as possible. And then the third piece is mentorship. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Once someone is into this career path, we want them to have the support to continue to grow it. So we have this amazing, distinguished panel here of people who are going to talk about how they got to where they are and the mentor relationships they have had. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the microphone around and ask each of them to introduce themselves and talk about at least one mentor relationship that they've had.
Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Tracy Manning. I am currently the executive director of the Housing Development Center. But I started my career in affordable housing in 1993, which I think qualifies as the word distinguished instead of old. But I was really lucky, and I think part of the point of this panel is to kind of encourage people in a way that I did not to make your own luck. So I was hired in an organization called Central City Concern in 1993 as the receptionist. And I left 18 years later as the chief operating officer. And so the only way I got from point A to point B was having a lot of mentors. And those, fortunately for me, were often the executive director of the organization, even though I didn't necessarily report to them. And the other thing I want to note initially about that story, so we can let other people talk, is that they were amazing people. We worked in space together, as we all did back then, but don't all do now. And so a lot of what I learned from them was informal. I had a boss who presented his vision for the organization very often by just sort of leaning in people's doorways and chatting. And I didn't realize I was being mentored until many years later. And so I think a lot about how do we make sure those opportunities happen, particularly for people earlier in their career path when we're not in space together as much as we used to. The other thing I would note about that experience, and again, they were great people. They were both men that supervised me and mentored me. And I have not been supervised by a woman since I was 26 years old. And I've talked to a lot of other women my age that have had that same experience. And so I think that's also a gap that we're trying to address.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Maria Elena Guerra, everybody calls me Meg, because not everybody can say Maria Elena. Actually working with the Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation in Woodward, Oregon, executive director. Also the executive director for Evolved Workforce and Multifamily Service. So here we are, 2 organizations for the price of 1. I'm an immigrant, I'm not from here. I'm sure you are noticing my accent. And I think I have a mentor since I was able to distinguish what I wanted to be on my life and where I wanted to go. I chose them, and sometimes they choose me. In this career, especially in property management, I think my biggest mentors, just similar like you. I think the last time I have a boss that it was a female was when I was 20. My mentors have been in this country males. In my country, we're all females. I'm from Guayaquil, Ecuador. But if I didn't have the mentors that I had when I started at FHDC, I wouldn't have made it. Especially as an executive director. I started in there as a director of property management. And then left and come back. And I have been 8 years as executive director. And again, I couldn't made it without this person. And it was organic. It was not, here's your mentor, you're gonna go to him for everything. It's a person in my board of directors and no longer a part of the board, but he keeps being my mentor. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Rogers. I use she, her pronouns. It's really nice to be a part of this incredible panel. Just want to share a little bit. I just like Tracy, I started in this career in the 1990s and have now sort of come forward as now I'm the director of housing services for Washington County. I could not imagine being in that kind of position 20 years ago when I first started in this industry. And it was, if not for my mentors and people seeing something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself, I don't think I would have thought I didn't have the confidence to think I could achieve in this way. So I'm here also to encourage all of us. All of us here can be a mentor. And I want to think about who's someone who may be emerging and may not be have the same number of years of experience as you. See something in them that they may not see in themselves. A couple people I want to highlight in my past who really did launch me. The first really being Robin Boyce. I think she was sort of an incredible mentor for many of us, but she, I don't even know how much experience, very little experience, but she said, yeah, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you asset management. And then we actually ended up creating a curriculum that helped train really dozens of organizations across Oregon to build up asset and property management capacity. It's still obviously very, very needed. But Robin was one of those people who could sit down with you for hours and teach you all the things in a performa, even when I had no idea what a performa was. She said that doesn't matter. Everyone can learn it. And so there was just there's that moment where you realize there's the technical components of that relationship, but really it's about someone who is investing in you as a holistic person. And they are seeing that you have passions and you have goals and you have desires to advance and to keep learning in some fashion or another. The other person I want to recognize is Robin. Robin was one of those people who recognized the need to have formal and informal mentorship and professional development. And she built her board. The Housing Development Center board was very diversified in having a variety of different capacities. So there was a board member named Jeannie Nyquist and Jeannie Nyquist Associates, and she was an organizational development and strategic planning expert. And that was important for Robin to have someone who can also help with her and think through any kind of HR issues. But she dedicated actual time for Jeannie as a consultant to spend time with me. And I think it was really important at that time as a new manager. So when you think about like these moments of mentorship in your career, I think being a new manager or you're just in a new fresh job, that's sort of that critical time. You need some extra space to really say, I'm not comfortable. I don't have the confidence. I'm not entirely sure how what kind of leader or what kind of supervisor I'm going to be, and to be able to have that kind of relationship where you can be really honest and vulnerable with someone, and then they can kind of lead you along the way. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dee Walsh, and I started my career before the 90s. I'm currently the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Mercy Housing, Inc. We have 5 regions, of which one is Mercy Housing Northwest. Their office is located in Seattle, but we just hired an Oregon person, completed our first project here. We're in 21 states. We have about 26,000 units of housing and about 350 properties. I say about because it changes so much, it's hard to get the exact number. I became an executive director when I was 32, and that doesn't happen these days very often, but back in the day, there wasn't a lot of talent out there or experienced people. The affordable housing industry in Portland was really nascent, and so I looked pretty good. But I certainly was learning on the job, and I had about 10 years of experience before then, mostly in city government. But I started out at a nonprofit as a Vista volunteer when I first got out of college. So, I had a fair amount of experience, but definitely not enough. And I think when I think of who my mentors were, I tried to get involved with a lot of network organizations, both locally and nationally. I was very active with the National Congress for Community Economic Development, which doesn't exist anymore. I was on their board. I was on the board of the Enterprise, was called the Enterprise Foundation back there, their advisory board for about 13 years, and et cetera, Housing Partnership Network. And I tried to, put myself in the same room with a lot of smart people. And then I engaged in some very serious R&D, which my Australia friends call rip off and duplicate. So what I would do is, talk to people. And in fact, when you go out to dinner at conferences, I'd say, let's go around the table. Tell me the coolest thing you're working on right now. And then I would steal the great ideas and bring them back here. And I was at Reach for 24 years, and we did a lot of really cool stuff. And most of it wasn't my original thinking. So I think, putting yourself in rooms with people you can learn from is a good approach to take if you don't have the time to sort of seek someone out individually.
Thanks, Steve. I am Ann Remmers. I'm the Deputy Director and Director of Lending at the Network for Oregon Affordable Housing. When I think about my mentor, the relationship was never made Facebook official, right? We never defined it as a mentor-mentee relationship, but it was someone that I developed a relationship with at my previous employer. I came from PNC Bank, reform banker. You'll hear a lot of us say that term. But she was somebody who had charted a similar career path. I found her very intimidating. But we got to know each other on more of a personal level, and I realized and appreciated what she'd accomplished, and she gave me so much confidence, and really helped me take the next step, really gave me the encouragement. So it was just somebody that I found that I respected, and that was sort of a neutral third party. You know, if you're in a relationship or a marriage or have a partner, you know, that person maybe doesn't always in your mind provide the best advice, but she was a neutral third party that could really see the big picture and was able to provide me the kind of guidance that I needed. And so it started off on a more personal level, and it's grown from there, and I really appreciate it. So that's my story.
My name is Gina Leon. I'm the Affordable Housing Director for Umpqua Bank. And since I'm last up, I'm going to try to maybe pull some threads from the other panelists' comments. That thread being sometimes your mentors aren't who you don't pick them, they pick you. That my biggest and most impactful mentor was just that. His name is Dave Castracanos. Several of the panelists probably know him. Back in the days when I was working at U.S. Bank, and U.S. Bank was a community bank based in Portland, Oregon. It was not a national bank at that time. We were bought by a national bank. I walked into the office. They asked every employee to go into the conference room. It was in the commercial real estate division. And they said, the mergers happened. All of you have new jobs. And they went around the table and said, you're now doing this. You're now doing this. You're now doing this. They got to me. At that time, I was an underwriter in home builder lending. And they said, you're now going to be an affordable housing underwriter. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And they said, and you're going to work with that guy. And that was Dave. And Dave and I worked together for over 10 years. And originally I was just his underwriter, and I loved it. And I was learning so much from him. And one day he said to me, I'm going to train you to be me, to be a relationship manager and to do whatever you want to do. And I'm like, I don't want your job. I like what I'm doing. I like being an underwriter. And he's like, okay, that's fine. You can keep doing that, but you have potential, and I'm going to train you and I'm going to mentor you to be something greater. If he hadn't done that, I don't know if I would be here today. I will forever be grateful. Sorry, I get emotional, but mentors can just mean everything to you. And it's really special what he taught me. And we went through many, in that time frame, economic cycles. And as a banker, you learn a lot when times are good, and you learn a whole lot when times are bad. And Dave was there for me every step of the way. He retired probably about 10 years ago, and I still have coffee with him. I still look at him as a mentor and ask him questions. And there are many others that have played an important role in my life. But to start our conversation, I wanted to thank you, Dave.
I got my first loan from Dave Castracanos.
Thank you. What a bunch of great stories. I'd like to poll the audience and get a sense for what brought you each here. And it's okay to raise your hand more than once. I have 3 questions. One, are you here because you're interested in finding a mentor for yourself? Okay, quite a few hands. Are you interested in becoming a mentor? Nice, that's fantastic. And are you maybe here on behalf of an organization or your company and interested in starting up a mentorship program? Okay, we've got a lot of that going on. It's great. Part of what we're doing at WAN is we'll be setting up a mentorship program that is that's run independently of other companies, and we'll be doing. The North Carolina one has been doing this successfully, and it starts with a speed dating event, and then we'll match people up with mentors and follow your progress. So keep an eye open for that. If you're interested in participating, join Juan, and we'll make sure you hear about it. So I want to talk a little bit more. I think we've gotten a good sense for this, but I want to get a little more of a definition, because mentor is sort of a formal sounding word. And I think a lot of the relationships that were described here, people wouldn't have necessarily called themselves a mentor, but they were. So let's talk a little bit about what is a mentor, why are mentors important, and can a boss be a mentor? What's the difference between a mentor and a coach? Anybody want to take that on?
I'll start with, I think there is some general criteria, at least for me, that I have come to realize when it really does have to be a two-way street. So it's not just one person trying to disseminate knowledge to another person. It really is about building a relationship. And when it is an informal kind of relationship, you may not realize that you're being mentored. But you know that you have a feeling when you're around that person, and you have a curiosity and you want to ask them more questions. In a more formal setting, I would say come prepared. Ask questions. Have a maybe not, doesn't necessarily have to have an agenda, but generally, at least for what I found really compelling was when I can combine what is something I am struggling with right now. There's an emerging issue. There's generally like I need guidance, but also how do I navigate either generally it's about a communication or relationship issue. Those are generally the hardest ones that people need guidance with. And then, of course, I loved having that technical knowledge as well, being able to, like, I need to learn a lot more. I like to call it the PhD in affordable housing, because it takes roughly the same number of years to write a dissertation as it is to learn how to do some of the basics, to know that you have enough competency. So being able to do that on a more some kind of recurring basis also works too. People are really busy, so you need to have that sort of dedicated time, if you will, like once a month, to just have that kind of open conversation.
I would say I think a boss can be a mentor. Dee is a perfect example. Dee was my boss at one point in my career, and she gave me a lot of really good guidance. So I think if you have a good boss, they can definitely be a mentor. And I always think of Dee in the back of my mind. If I need support, I would never hesitate to reach out to her, just because she did provide me all of that guidance while we worked closely together. So thank you. And I would also say that Bill, our executive director today, is providing me that guidance. And so I see a boss as a mentor for sure.
I 100% agree, because the example I gave you, he was my boss. But I also think you can find mentors that are in completely different industries. And today, maybe I have a situation where maybe I don't agree with my boss, or maybe he doesn't agree with me. I mean, those situations do happen. And then sometimes it's like you need to get outside your head and the sphere that you're working in and talk to someone completely different. So I also have mentors that are completely outside of banking, that I can talk to and say, hey, I'm having this situation. What would you do in this? What kind of guidance would you give? And it's always the most amazing thing, because they totally get it. They're like, oh yeah, I had that exact same situation, but maybe they're, I don't want to give too much away, but completely different industry. And it's like, we are all the same, right? We're all human beings trying to work together, help each other out, do good work. But sometimes along the way you hit a speed bump and you need some guidance, and that can be a boss, or maybe it can be someone completely outside of your industry. So.
Mentor. For me, it starts with a simple friendship. I need to know that this person have similar values that I hold. For me, difference between a mentor and a coach, basically, for me at least, is a coach focus on your professional skills, technical skills. This person is going to tell you, you have to go on through these classes, you have to do all this. A mentor for me, completely different. I can cry with that person. I'm not going to be judged. I can disagree and I can explore other options. From the perspective of a woman of color, to get a mentor is difficult. People sometimes don't want to mentor you because, well, I don't, if it's a person, a white person, well, they are not facing the same challenges that you are facing as a woman of color or a person of color. No, I'm not saying that you won't find that person in that community. I found it because our connection was different. It was not technical. It was not about he's older than me. He understands the power dynamics and he understands his position as a white male and the challenges that I will have working in an industry that at that point when I entered that industry, it was basically a male-dominated industry. And the housing development industry, I'm talking property management, asset management, no longer only a male-dominated area. But the housing development, it is heavily still, I think, dominated by males. And entering that, it was different. One time I have a staff member telling me, it feels different to walk into a room with you as a female person of color than walking with my ex-boss, which was a male, white. And that was a feeling that she has. And I try to disseminate what is the difference. Because keep in mind, I didn't grow up in this country, so I never was shut down when I was speaking. So I don't have the same trauma, because it's trauma. So, but look at this panel. Why is just one woman of color? We need more. And mentoring is a way to get there. I think people of color take mentorship in a different way. Again, it's not as easy. Sometimes our own organizations can sponsor us and get us a mentor or invite us to look into that, because most of us haven't been exposed to that before. We have done it informal, like Molly said, but we have never say formally, oh, you are my mentor. Let's do this and this. So very different position. Hopefully next time when this panel is called out, we are gonna see more diverse, a more diverse participation here. Thank you.
Seems like a mic drop moment. We should move to the next question.
Yes, it is a mic drop moment. Now she's going to make me follow that. So I want to talk about what makes a successful mentor-mentee relationship. Whether you found your mentor or your mentee through a formal process, or you've just identified someone and reached out to them, what does each party need to bring to this? And I'm going to start this conversation by reading some comments from Ashley Northcutt, who is the president of WAN nationwide, and she's been working on some mentor programs. So I'm just going to salt the conversation with some of her comments and then ask the panel to add to that. She says the mentee needs to take initiative, set up calls, think of topics they want to discuss, and lead the process. It's helpful and shows the mentor they are serious. The mentor should suggest topics and offer all the advice, the books, the people and companies to follow on LinkedIn, and make the introductions. And also share events for them to attend, industry conferences and that kind of thing. And then follow through on the whole process. Commit to spending at least a year together, meeting regularly, and continuing the conversation, letting that relationship evolve. So those are Ashley's comments. What do you all think?
Well, I think I would start one step before that. And if you're looking for a mentor, first make sure you know why. Because, listening to, I heard, I think everybody here say they still have mentors or people they informally consult. Not many, and that may be because of, for myself, I have peers, I have people I supervise that I seek out to grow in my career, to grow in emotional intelligence or, HR issues or, how to handle something that's political. A lot of these, when I think of formal mentorship programs, I think about, well, maybe somebody who is interested in a career that I'm currently in. Maybe they are interested in being an executive director or a housing developer or a senior asset manager. And so they're interested in the mentor relationship because they're interested in moving in that direction in your career. And so I think it's a really useful first step to think about what you want out of the relationship and to be able to communicate that. Because I think, who wouldn't be flattered to have someone say like, I love the way you handle this, or I want to be like you.
For me, there are two basic things that I think are successful or are key for being in a relationship with a mentor. First is trust. I need to trust that person. I need to trust that I'm gonna be crying and he's not gonna go and tell everybody that I'm crying. Or that I am gonna share with this person all the mistakes and all the fear that I feel. And when I'm sad or that I'm upset about how, sometimes cities take affordable housing to industrial areas. Why? So trust. And the second one for me is respect, mutual respect. I am here because I respect you and the things that I can absorb from you. But that person, and I think Molly mentioned this, is a two-way. It can't be one way. I'm not gonna be doing all the work, or he's not gonna, or this person is not gonna be doing all the work. There's a lot of respect and commitment to the relationship, to our own growth. And I think, by the way, that when you are a mentor, you also grow new skills, because either you are learning from a younger person or from a more mature individual. So again, it's a two-way, but trust and respect are the two key things that I look into a mentorship relationship.
I think what's important and helpful a little bit, I saw a lot of hands raised that a lot of you want to be mentors. And I think we'll get into more of the formal versus informal and how to do that. But I think from an informal perspective, we all recognize that we need to develop affordable housing talent, right? And that's important. To sort of piggyback off what Meg said, I think building a relationship with somebody new in the industry or somebody who's expressed interest in getting into the industry. I've definitely had a lot of young folks reach out and just want to learn more about affordable housing, and developing that relationship and being willing to be there for that person and provide them confidence, as I touched on when I first talked about my mentor, was that confidence building and just knowing somebody is there in your corner to help you navigate this wild industry that we have. And so I think, you know, if you are looking to be a mentor and there isn't that sort of formal program there, to be on the lookout for you know, a younger person getting started in the industry that clearly has the desire and the want and the need, and just offer, I mean, they don't have to come to you, right? My mentor, I'm pretty sure, came to me first and built the relationship. And you know, I wasn't aware of it until only recently that that's sort of what happened. But that person, she was there for me through this whole process. And it was really that she formed a relationship. Again, she was very intimidating to me. I was never going to talk to her, like, right? But she reached out to me and she was that support to me. So I encourage that. I think that's what's important or helpful in sort of the mentor-mentee relationship is just, it's a relationship, sort of, as Meg has said. So
Just one little bit. I love what Meg said, and I would tack on one other thing, and that's open and honest conversation. Because sometimes that mentor-mentee relationship, you're talking about difficult things, and that it's a safe space to have really tough conversations and to be reflective. And I think that's where a lot of the personal growth comes from, is just being totally honest.
Yeah, I was going to add, be curious, both as a mentor and a mentee, because and open, because I think that you learn as much from each other. It's not a one-way thing, and just so be really open to learning about the other person.
really quickly, ironically, I was talking to my mom on the drive here and telling her what I was doing, and she used to be a trainer, and she said the one thing that you need to realize is that other people talking to you is a gift. And so that's true for the mentee and the mentor. I think it's a gift. The time is a gift, and learning, you know, you can learn from each other, and I think that builds the trust and all the things that we're talking about here. So just, you know, value that time both as a mentor and a mentee. It's a gift.
I just want to, there's this residual effect, and I think maybe you don't realize it over time until you realize, oh, wow, that one little burst of confidence that because someone saw something in me, and knew I could do something that I didn't think I could do, eventually led to me applying for a job that I didn't initially had declined to apply for, because no woman had ever had that job before. I didn't think I hadn't done that job before, so why should I apply for that job? And just took the little bit of encouragement, led me to a place where, okay, wait a second. If so-and-so could do this job, maybe I can do it. But it is this rebound, this residual, this compounding, the pay it forward phenomena that really is playing out. And I was able to, I applied for that job. I actually got the job, and I ended up being the first female director of asset management at an organization that had been doing it for many decades. So I was thrilled to be able to, I now realize it's because of my mentor who got me there.
That is so true. Like the pay it forward. I feel, because again, going back to Dave, he believed in me. And when I started in affordable housing, there were no women. There were no women underwriters. It was a very weird time. And to think where we've come. When I started in this industry, this would have been all white men. No offense to the white men in the audience, you're lovely. But we've made progress. We have more to go. We have more room to go. But I feel the strongest responsibility to pay it forward. Someone believed in me, and I have people that have been involved in my life that I believe in and have made every effort to try to encourage their growth, and will continue to do that. If someone seeks me out, I will be there for you, because someone was there for me. This is like my retirement project, like get as many people as we can into this industry. It's so important. So.
Yeah, I love that concept of pay it forward. I think it's all about, I think our overarching theme here is that we want to create a culture of mentorship, of helping everyone build each other up and be available to help this community grow and develop a workforce of passionate and talented and people who know what comes next in their career. We've talked a little bit, we've touched on the idea of formal mentorship programs, and a few people here on the panel have experience with that. You know, I'm sure everyone's heard of some of them, either run within a company or by an external organization like Juan. They're not always successful. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they are hit or miss. But I'd just like to hear a few comments about what worked, what didn't, and some lessons learned. So I think Meg, Molly, and Dee all had some things to say about it.
So I think FHDC has a mentorship program since its beginning, but it's not formal. It's not informal either. It's organic. It just needs to happen. And why it needs to happen? Because we need people of color to take the work and do more. It is a need more than anything for us. But at the beginning, I talk a little bit about sponsorship and how this organization has sponsored me and many behind me is through education. I'm glad to say that, you know, Molly was one of the first people that I talked a lot about asset management. I knew that I could call her at any time of the day and she will pick up the phone and tell me, no, you're doing this wrong or bad, or, you know, or, yeah, good idea, Meg, try it. But every time I use mentorship as a retention tool. Some of the people that work in our organization come from our own properties. Most of them low-income individuals that have never had the opportunity to travel to a conference, to go into a training program, because guess what? They were working on summer because they need to support their family. And this organization is giving them the opportunity, and I'm pushing that agenda, by the way, hard. Everybody that enters the door of FHDC has to have a professional development plan. And the only way that I personally have learned more about the industry is by going outside my bubble, by asking what is working, what is not. Today, I'm happy to report that we are in a collaborative with Bienestar, in which our asset manager is overseeing both housing portfolios. The goal, obviously, is for him now, after 3 years of being doing this, is to mentor the other 2 juniors that we are gonna, at some point, attract. We don't have those juniors yet because we are being very picky. For my organization, I think it's extremely important that the individuals getting into these positions are coming from our own communities because they know the struggle. They know that technical skills are easy to learn, but compassion is not. And that's what we look for. A person that has human skills. Because again, the technical skills, believe me, you will learn them. Thank you.
Ooh, more mic dropping. I think Meg really touched on something really crucial, and that is we have made some strides in trying to diversify our workplaces, getting people of color more able to get into jobs, but we have not done very well in promotional opportunities and retention for employees of color. So we have a lot of work we need to do. Mentorship is one tool. Another there's a lot of other issues we need to deal with on that front. But I also want to emphasize the need for internships, starting out with giving someone a chance who may be interested in growing. So we have a Hatfield fellow that we brought in. I'm this past year, I'm committed. I want at least an intern or a Hatfield fellow every year. We need to start building the next generation up. I did also work for an organization. They did create a formal mentorship program, but it was of a scale. It was actually at Home Forward. We had 300 employees, so we had an ability to do it within that same organization. But it really did take one person, an amazing leader named Kitty Miller, who's still there, who had an organizational development orientation. And it was a way to bridge or break down silos across departments. It was also created room for third party, as you said, independent, more fresh perspectives, and get out of that sort of dynamic. But it did take training. It took an assessment to really pair you with a mentee mentor, and then it's sort of some sustained effort to do that kind of work. But it really was partially because we wanted to give opportunities for our employees of color to have more promotional, and we wanted to diversify the the leadership team in a way that made more sense.
So when I first got to Mercy Housing in 2018, as I mentioned, we had 5 regional offices, and they didn't really ever talk to each other. The regional presidents didn't get together on a regular basis. The real estate teams in each location had never met the other people. And I found that like we're not using our size to our advantage. There's a lot of smart people here, and we need to work together more. So one of the things I did was started a mentorship program for the real estate folks. And I think one mistake there was that I did it like a couple months after I started, and I didn't know people yet. So I did have, and I just kind of made it up. I probably read a few articles about how to set up a mentorship program, but this was just Dee setting it up. So I had applications for the mentees, that described themselves and what they wanted to learn, and then for the mentors, again, describe themselves and what they felt they had expertise in that they could share. And one of my goals was to match people from different regions with each other. And I had there's about 60 real estate staff across the country. The bulk of them are in California because we have 3 offices there. And, California has a lot of money, although not right now, but they normally have a lot of money for housing. They just had a state budget crisis, so they're having some tough time. But we had about 20 people that participated. Most people, I reread the evaluations this morning, most people felt like it was really worthwhile, and they liked getting to know the other person and felt like they had done, that was more successful than maybe learning new skills. And then I didn't do it, I did it for like a 6-month pilot, and then I decided what I really needed to do was organize a day and a half or 2-day peer exchange training program for everybody and bring everyone together so that they could meet each other. So the next time I did the mentor program, people would have a better idea of who they were. I never did the mentor program. Again, I sort of forgot about it. But I am doing the real estate meetings every other year. And those really are a great opportunity for folks to learn from the people that have been around longer.
I'll quickly just do a plug. It's not a mentorship program, but we at NOAA have engaged with, it's now called The Script. It used to be the Emerging Leaders Program, and it's an internship program for BIPOC students. And not all of our interns have necessarily come into our organization with an interest in affordable housing, but we always have the hope. And there has been one that at least he's gone on to get his master's. He's working on his master's in finance at Portland State. So he did at least get interested in finance. So that was exciting, but just plug for that program. It's a really wonderful program. We've really enjoyed it. So,
I'm going to plug PSU too because I'm on their board. So it's shameless, but I'm going to do it anyway. PSU has a wonderful program in real estate development, and it covers all different aspects of commercial real estate. And so if anyone is interested in going back to school, the program's fantastic. There are mentorship opportunities, and they do a great job of connecting students with local businesses for internships, but also just meet and greets. And there's been several occasions I feel very blessed to have been asked to come speak to the students, and they can ask questions and talk about like what are the job opportunities in banking in this space. And then we have investors that come and talk, and developers, so they really get an idea of the variety of jobs that are available within the commercial real estate world. So fabulous program. We do have some PSU graduates in the room and some students too. So if anyone's interested, I can connect you with some of them. Yes, they have a property management certificate. So yes, thank you. Like, we're not getting paid for this. It's just a great program. Yeah. They have a property management program as well. So definitely worth taking a look at their website and seeing all of the wonderful training opportunities that are available. And involved.
Yeah, well, remember, I'm representing 2 organizations, so 2 for 1. So cheap, affordable. Evolve Workforce and Multifamily Service. Great program dedicated to create a pipeline of property managers, site staff. No maintenance, but site staff. What can I tell you about this program? 10 weeks, you have the opportunity, or the person that gets into the program has the opportunity to hang around experienced property manager that will tell them everything that it goes on in the industry and how they do the job. At that point, people really knows if they want to be a property management person. Most of them, by the way, say, yeah, this is not for me the first day. Because, those who practice property management know that property management is exquisite. It's a problem, a daily problem. The property management company that doesn't have a problem is, I don't know what they are doing. But going back to that program, the biggest situation, and I lived terrified when I was managing property, when I was doing property management, because somebody got sick, somebody got pregnant, have to live for 3 months. Jeez, I have to do it because I have no pipeline of people that I can call and say, can you do this for 3 weeks? And that have at least the basic knowledge. Today we have that. Today, yeah, I know. Like, I don't sleep with my cell phone on 24/7 anymore. Because we have people that if we have an opening, we send that, we get immediately responses. Yeah, I'm ready. And that, I think, is one of the biggest success of Evolve. I want to say that, yes, real estate, the PSU, Chemekera also has a real estate property management class. We don't do in deep technical skills. Again, we focus more in people skills, power dynamics. Managers here, residents here, no. For us, it's a collaboration. Attention that will always exist, by the way. Managers and residents are always gonna be in this constant tension. How, as a person working in the affordable housing industry in property management, how you manage that tension is key for the success of the resident, the property, and yourself as a professional, so you don't get sick. Thank you.
Following Meg is not, it's not, Sorry, Carmen. So I guess I just want to bring into the room. So at Housing Development Center, we do internal mentorship. We recognize in a very acute way, as Molly said, you sort of have to get a PhD to be able to be the lead developer, to be a senior asset manager. And if I, go out to hire a senior staff person, I mean, there's a lot of technical skills that you have had to learn somewhere to be qualified for that position. And so just to get super practical. So part of what we're doing at HDC is trying to grow our own, and we have an associate project management position, and we have, we're consultants, so we have to code our time, and we code time to formal mentorship of those staff people so that they can learn those technical skills. But, we're also a nonprofit. We try to keep our rates down. I'm not going to code that time to Meg's project. So, I think there's a reality when you're particularly in a smaller organization about how you resource this work. Because, we'd love to have an associate in our asset management program, but we just can't afford it right now. And so how do we as an industry kind of cobble this together? Interns are great. That serves a role in saying like, hey, you should consider affordable housing as a viable career. That's obviously you've got to start there. But to work, in a lot of your organizations and actually develop or asset manage housing, there's a lot of technical skills that you need to get on the ground. And how do you learn that, and how do we resource learning that? And so that's something I'm very interested in.
I want to echo the praise for Portland State University. From my experiences as a recruiter, and I've placed a few graduates of their real estate programs, and I've learned that when I see it on a resume, I perk up my interest a little bit. So they do excellent work, and it sounds like they are expanding their programs and offering things that are even more relevant to our industry. So I'm excited to hear about that. I want to make sure we leave some time for audience questions, but the last topic that I'd like to go over is a little bit about, for a mentee, how to approach a potential mentor, how to have that conversation. It can be intimidating. It can be scary. And asking someone to spend some time with you who they're busy, they're not going to have time for me. The thing that I always say to people to job seekers, to people coming to me for advice, is people love to talk about themselves. Don't hesitate. Ask them to have a cup of coffee, have a short Zoom call, and just ask them questions. Don't ask them for a job. Don't ask them, are you hiring? Ask them, how did you get to where you are? What do you wish you had known when you were at this point in your career? What should I be thinking about as I move forward? Those are questions that kind of take people out of their day-to-day problems and get to think more big picture, and people love to do that. And you can hear that these folks on the panel have really enjoyed their relationships as mentors. So I'd like to ask any of you what else to add to that. What do you like to see in a mentee in that first conversation?
I'm going to tell a story from when I screwed up as a young person and kind of let a great mentor get away and learn later that she was like, oh, we probably should have. I was like, oh, God. So I would also suggest an alternative path. So this was someone who was not inside my organization, kind of a third party. We had enough connection. She was a woman who had risen in the ranks. And so we had like a little bit in common, and we professionally, and I think talked often enough that I think we ended up having a formal meeting over some topic, and then talked a little bit, we're both into gardening or whatever. And so an alternative path is this person and I ended up meeting a couple times over coffee because we had enough in common. And what I and talked, I don't know, about a specific project or hostas or something. And what I failed to do was recognize the moment to say, like, oh, I kind of snuck in the side door here. And I would ask her questions about, gee, how should I handle this? And importantly, how should I think about handling this? And that was what I should have then done, is said, hey, how would you feel about me buying you breakfast once a month? And so, I mean, I think the front door approach could be very successful. I think I would, as a somewhat introvert, would have been comfortable with a side door approach. Also an option. But I screwed up.
What was the question?
So what would you, as a mentor, like to see from the mentee, in that first conversation?
Yeah. I think I like straightforward people. Like, I would like to see this person coming at least with their cell phone to take notes, to know what they want, at least have an idea of what they want. Because if you are in a discovery place, I don't think I will be the best person to do that. And I was just speaking to some of you why. And it's because most of us, people of colors in position of power, how much has 3 or 4 times more work, because that's life for us. We have to demonstrate always I can do it better with less resources, and I can do it faster. The second thing is most of us, people of color, don't like to ask for anything, because we get always, oh, people of color is always asking for help. We have given you help all these years, and you keep asking, and your communities are not in the place that they should be. So for us, as a people of color, it's very difficult to say, I need help. Can you help me to get to this? So I will advise to be just honest to yourself, and if you know what you at least have an idea what you want, just ask a person, how can I navigate this, and how can I move forward in my career? And for those who wants to be mentors, I will say, especially if you're a person of color, there is a big need. Connect with organizations that has, that serve communities of colors and that are led by communities of color. Believe me, we need your help, and we need your time. I will say that those are the things that I, in some way, I would like to see on a mentee. Don't be afraid. Be, risky. This word is too difficult right now not to be risky. You have to be risky. You have to trust yourself, and just ask for what you want.
I was going to tell a story, but now I'm changing to another story. I'll never forget meeting for the first time a certain someone who was on this panel. And, was coming in to do some technical assistance, and we were chit-chatting about all the things. And Meg was like, that's all nice and good, Molly, but I'm dealing with this, and this. And it was like, woo! And in that moment, it was like, okay, we got to shift gears. You've got real, like, especially in property management, real crises every day. And that's where we have to listen. We have to listen to where people are at, in that headspace, the emotional space, but also recognize, especially as a white person, there is positional power. And so what does that mean as we work with our mentees or work with other mentors? I didn't really realize that. I was sort of blissfully unaware until I was actually asked to be a mentor from someone who was from a finance team. And our first meeting, I was like, why me? She said, well, you're one of the very few female directors with mostly male directors. And I hadn't quite, that hadn't quite sunk in, that I could also be an inspiration for others who are younger than I am, who are trying to get up the ladder themselves. So being aware of all that and being aware of where your mentee is starting out and meet them where they're at.
So I'm not really answering the question, but kind of building on what you said. I think that when you're in a leadership position, that you have to always remember that people are watching you, and you have to be a good role model. I have a couple of team members in the room, and they can tell you sometimes I fail at that. But it's really true. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised that someone will come up to me and say, "Oh, remember when you talked about this? That really made a difference for me." And I'm like, "Really, it did?" And so it reminds me of my son telling people that he learned to swear riding in the back seat of the car when he was little. Because he was listening. So, your team members are just like, kids. They're soaking up a lot. So remember to be a good role model for others.
I would say just having the interest and desire is step number one. So the fact that you're reaching out as a mentee looking for a mentor is a big deal. I think mentors need to recognize that. I also would encourage you to be prepared and okay with a no. I know somebody that reached out for an informational interview with the hopes of turning it into a mentorship, and he got a no, flat out no, and he moved on, and it was okay. The person was just busy, and that's it's okay. That might happen. There are other folks out there that will be willing to provide that to you. So he moved on and he found somebody else. So I would say just honestly the passion and desire and the interest, and it's on us as mentors to recognize that that opportunity. So
I don't think I can top any of that because it's all really good. So I'll just say, just ask questions. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. And then when you do have the opportunity to chat with someone, ask questions, come prepared with questions, and be engaged in the conversation when you do have that time, because time is precious. So that's all.
I'll also just offer myself up as a resource, and I'm sure others on the panel, and I see a lot of faces in the room. I'm more than willing to be a matchmaker. I'm aware of folks out there that have interest in finding a mentor and vice versa. And if you're like, hey, I want to, so reach out to me, and I'm happy to see if there's somebody out there. So always willing to be a resource. And I think that's sort of what's key, that's the opening, is just finding somebody who's willing. Yeah, matchmakers.
Well, we have about 7 minutes left, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. Anybody got? Yes, you.
I want to first say I just appreciate this panel so much. I think most of the mentors I've had that's been the best have been women. To shout out one of them, who I feel like some people might know, is Lily Brown from Sabin CDC. Love Lily. I started right when she was retiring, so it was like the worst timing ever. But I wanted to ask, what are like some of the strides being made to offer these opportunities to like the more like the BIPOC communities and to get more people of color in this field? Because a little bit of background, I'm not from Portland, Oregon. I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. If you know anything about Detroit, it's a very Black city. I did not think I would be doing something like this, and I did not think I would get this opportunity, mainly because these opportunities aren't really brought to those communities of like color and you never know who might want to get into this. So I was curious, like, what efforts are being made to engage with them?
So I can say that FHDC has been doing this kind of work, bringing people of color into the industry for 30 plus years. We have done it internally. The board of directors decided that one part of the developer fee will always be put aside to create the next generation of people in the industry. Again, we have done that maybe organically, but I think it has worked. The second thing, great question, because I was gonna ask if anybody knows what is the cost of making that next generation of leaders in housing, in affordable housing at large, meaning property management. Let's not forget supported services, which, by the way, is becoming increasingly more and more needed. Housing development, of course, asset managers, all that, the cost of, of, of giving that. And I will ask if anybody from Oregon Housing Community Service or the governor office is in here, because they are working on the budget. And one thing that we need to do as an industry is to push our leaders to put aside money for capacity building. Oregon Housing Community Service is doing some work in that area. We have a session tomorrow, by the way, about that. Make sure that you are there, because we need to push the agenda. We need to have a clear understanding of, in the budget, that investments, especially for communities of color and the LGBT community, will be there, clear, not in some place in the 300 and something page that the budget is. I haven't finished reading it yet. But something that we can see that is tangible. So great question. I don't know what other are doing, but I will say that in our case, to help our individuals internally in the organization, and I'm just talking about sending to conference, a seminar, a class, it's around 10 to 15,000 per year per staff member. So it's an investment that you will take any place that you go, by the way. So we see it as a retention tool, but also an investment in our community.
I'm not aware of anything formal as an industry. I will say that, there are a lot of organizations really focused on DEIB efforts, and I plugged the script as an internship program. I know, for example, Partners in Diversity has their Say Hey program, which is, happy hours. So get-togethers and finding people to connect with in that way, but also just knowing that, our organizations, that's what we want to do. And so it's likely incredibly hard to reach out and get informational interviews and seek a mentee, or a mentor. But this is incredibly important to us as an industry. And so I really encourage that. And again, make me a resource, and I can make connections or whatever it may be, just finding the individuals that are willing to do that. So unfortunately, I'm not aware of a formal program. I wish there was, and perhaps that's something we need to work on. But, I do think that there are opportunities out there. It's just unfortunately finding them. It's a good question. Thank you.
There's a national program called Project Destined, but it deals with diverse students that are in college, and it hooks them up with affordable housing developers and others in the industry, and exposes them and provides internship opportunities. Cedric Bobo is the person who runs it.
I just want to highlight what Meg is doing at Evolve is reaching out to residents of her communities and getting them trained up in the industry. And that is a way to bring more people with lived experience into the industry, and not necessarily BIPOC people, but very often BIPOC. So that is a way to continue to grow that workforce. Other questions? Yes. Yeah, just okay. So.
Yeah, so Sheila was asking, how are we dealing with mentorship when most of us work remotely, and some folks live in different parts of the state. And I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but to say I think it's really important to think about. So, Housing Development Center gave up our office during COVID. We're consultants. We don't have an office yet, and I think as a team, we're growing increasingly concerned about it. I listened to a couple of years ago to Malcolm Gladwell talk about, and it just stuck with me so much. I mean, honestly, for people like distinguished people, it may not be as urgent. But when I think about how I learned, and it was, most of us didn't have formal mentors, right? It was like my boss leaning in the doorway at Housing Development Center. I've been told it was the bullpen, and you just hear what the conversation was next to you. It's like, oh, you're struggling with this too. And and so for people who are starting their career, not being in person is a huge barrier. And so I don't have an answer for it other than to say I'm increasingly worried about it, and think we need to address it. And we're at time.
So we will let that be the last word, but thank you all for coming, and we're all up here if you have questions.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I'm like, I have a problem. And I mentioned it. I hired her. Yeah, yeah, call me. Yeah, call me. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I got you. I know, I got you.